decompression. Moisture in there. I took a wire brush and cleaned up this gasket surface here, and then I took a gasket scraper as well and scraped it, and then I wire brushed the top of this piston. There's a little arrow that points up. I just wanted to make sure I knew which way that went because I've seen that on that. Okay, piston insulation. Arrow stamped on piston crown must point down. When I took this apart, the piston arrow was pointing up, so I did go ahead and pull the wrist pin out, spin it around, and then I made sure that I line my rings up per the book here. I'm going to go ahead and put on I got it dirty already, a brand new one. So I kind of cleaned it up a little bit, and I have a package of these gaskets, which I'm happy for. I got, I think, 3 left. So I got those, that one, and I put some oil on it, so I'm going to wipe the gasket material that I scraped off. I'll clean that off. Then I'll put some motor oil in here and try and get my rings squished down, compressed, and get this pushed in. I went ahead and I took these guide pins out of the other head, and actually I may just put them in here to hold my gasket instead of lining them up on the head and then trying to line everything else up. So I did take my awl or a little scratch awl, and I cleaned around in there. There wasn't really much in there, just a little bit of stuff. And also, there's a vent right here. So I saw that in the book. So poked around in there, make sure that's open. Keep bypass gases from building up in here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this cleaned up again, oiled and worked on there. The head, since I was doing this, I considered doing the head as well. I've got the other one tore apart. Here's my valves, rockers, keepers, springs. I did consider using another head, and the brand new one, I was like, I have it. I looked at it, and it does not have valve seats. So those are a press-in item, and I do not have those, or a way to press them in. Okay, I have cleaned this up pretty good. It wasn't bad. However, there was a lot of carbon of all places, I guess, and on the end. Okay, my valve lapping tool won't stick to this, it's too big. And so, but anyway, what I'm doing is I got a little valve grinding compound, lapping compound on the bottom side of the valve and between the valve and the seat, and then I'm just going to take pliers and let's see if you can see that. Just going to grab a hold of the right here. I don't know if you can see that. Get a hold of it where the keeper, just up there above the keeper. Don't have to hold very hard, so I don't think I'll hurt anything. And then I'm just gonna rock it back and forth, lift it up, rock it back and forth, lift it up. And the reason that you lift it up is that allows it to suck some more of that compound back underneath that valve. Okay. Yeah, we're already getting a nice line right across there where it's polishing that and grinding it down basically to match that valve seat. And right here, see, I didn't put a lot on there. It's still got some compound there. I'm going to put just a tiny bit more on the valve. These are tiny little valves, so I don't really need a lot. And then we'll do it again. Okay, so I don't have a valve spring compressor this size, so I just use a pair of pliers. And so the valve, I have to push against it as the spring, or well, I don't. I compress the ring or the spring, but I could wind up pushing this down and making it harder to get my keepers on. So I got this little piece of wood. It's pretty close, so that will not let it push down quite so far. And so then I have this valve spring, my 2 keepers. You don't want to lose those. I don't want to lose anything, actually. And then this goes here. And I have this little magnet. This is what I used to take them off. I just pressed it down with the pliers and then grabbed them. Okay, I just got some wheel bearing grease. Some of these. So they'll stick. And see, they're tapered. That taper goes down. Sure, there's a lot better way to do this than what I'm doing it. One's in. I don't know. The last thing I need to do is lose this, have it shoot across the room. I'm sure I'm right in the way. You can't see. Sorry. finally got them in there. Got 2 of these in the bag. I brought these aligning pegs over from the other cylinder. This one is over here. Well, I forgot to put those bolts in. Well, that's weird. Oh, right there. All right, that's better. Okay, it took me a few minutes. I didn't put these 2 screws, bolts in at the bottom on this cylinder when I put it together. I was planning on doing that before I set the head on, but I couldn't remember which ones went there, and I forgot. And started, well wait, so then I had to figure out which bolts went there, and so now I've got them down, and I'll go ahead and pull everything down. So Okay, it says 75 inch-pounds, so I don't know. I tightened it snug. And there you go. Need to make sure. Get back in there. See what I'm doing. There's a little cup in the bottom of that that sits on the cam. And then you could probably set down in those little holes. And one of them is. Looks like both of them are. So now, this one's the intake, which is, there's the exhaust, intake's on here. And that big old nut there first. I'm just going to put it down enough that it's not going to, the rocker arm's not going to come off. I'm going to guess that that's too tight right now, but I would rather not drop a rocker arm on the floor. I think my battery's getting pretty low. Two thousandths and 3/1000ths is the clearance I saw in the book when I was looking. These are the lock nuts. I'm putting them on now, so I don't want to lose them. Okay, the book does actually say 2 to 3/1000ths on the valve, so I'm going to go with 3/1000ths. Okay, the book says we rotate this the direction of the arrow counterclockwise. There's an arrow. So until the intake valve starts to open. With the intake valve starting to open, continue rotating the flywheel until the T stamped on the flywheel aligns with the top hole in the crankcase. Okay, there's a top hole right there. This is the intake, so that's the intake valve. Exhaust valve closed, intake's just starting, and the T is right there. And I guess I'll hold it, and then we adjust 2000s. It's way too loose. Or 3000s. Okay. Okay, we got that one done. That's the exhaust. Okay. Exhaust open. Intake open. And set. There's where the points are at. And according to the book, 12 to 16 thousandths. And you need a relatively small feeler gauge, which, where's mine? There it is. I got one right here. And it's at 12 thousandths. It's at a very tight 12 thousandths. You need a pretty small feeler gauge to get in here. But at top dead center, and there's a pin mark right there. And this needs to be between there, and it fits in at 12 thousandths. In the book, the directions talk about setting the timing, and the points should should open at this point with F1. Right there. There's an F1. And then there's a T1, that the points are supposed to start opening at F1, and they start opening a few degrees before F1. A valve cover gasket, smothered her up with a little bit of oil on each side, so maybe with pull it off, it isn't going to stick. And these holes here are pretty tight over those hex nuts. I'm guessing that probably there was some round head something, or just a little bit smaller, because these I don't think were original. But anyway, it did fit on there, so I'm just going to go ahead and put this on. The decompression thing comes this side. There's one right somehow or another. Like so. And 2 bolts. Okay, this side of the case, most all the screws were loose, and some of the bolts were missing, so I pulled it off, pulled all the goop off. And I do have 2 new gaskets, case gaskets, one for this side and one for this side, but I'm not opening that. But I have this in the box as a new clutch. The one that's in there doesn't look bad at all, though. Actually, it looks like it has more clutch lining on it than this, so this one I'm just going to leave it as it is. Found this on one of the other pieces of case. So I'll just screw this one in on here. And I also found one more bolt. I'm going to go root around my boxes. Maybe I'll find enough of these case bolts so I don't have to go buy something. That would be optimal. In my gaskets, I do not have this gasket for this pan, this side, clutch side. What I have is 2 case gaskets, but not this one. But I have this piece of manila type material and a hammer, ball peen hammer. So I'm just going to hold this down and see how it's following along. The key is just to hold it. So like that. As you can see, I'm going to be off a little bit, so I got to start over, but there we go. Okay, there's my gasket, and I believe I kicked around the idea of just using some gasket maker, but I didn't want to, I changed my mind on that for the main reason being that when this is bolted up, there's a shim right here. And if there's not a paper gasket, I am afraid that this will be too tight. Now, and I didn't pay attention, so I wound up cutting this. And this is going to sit right there. And that, I believe, is a baffle to keep the, when you put on the brakes or step on the gas, oil moving and not being able to stay where it needs to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put just the thinnest layer of this on here on my cover, put my gasket on it, and that will let it set up and stick to here. Then once that's done, then I'll put some oil on the gasket so it doesn't stick to here. So if I wind up taking this off here, and you know, and I do know that on not personally, but I saw it on a video. Guy had a Honda 90, and he used gasket maker to seal it, and then there was some issues with clearance. He had to order in a gasket and scrape the gasket material off because of that difference. And so the cover is on, and I had to go to the hardware store and buy bolts. It was nice though. The parts manual tells you 6 by 20, those are millimeters, and the quantity you need, and then where they're actually at. In my box of stuff, I was able to come up with one additional. This one here, 6 by 85, which I'm glad, because the grocery store, the hardware store didn't have that size, but I was able to find it in the other box. Problem is, they've got a big pan head instead of a small pan head. So here's the size of the originals. Here's what I was able to get. So I just took them to the grinder, and actually I stuck them in the drill and turned them slow and ran it along the grindstone on the bench grinder and ground them down to where they would clear these, and then tighten them all up even. So, and when you put this cover on, it's a pain to get this pin to line up in. It has to go inside. There's a shaft, and there's a hole in the middle. This has to go in there, and if you don't, it won't drop down. And then you've got on each corner here, you've got alignment pins, which those aren't a problem. Once you get those started, then you got to kind of lean it like this, and then that will drop down. You can take a screwdriver and nudge it if you need to. It'll drop down in that little hole. Push this down, and you're good to go. This spacer was on the head for the carburetor to bolt onto, but this is the size of the hole in the intake. Not going to go that route. Found this in the box, and in the book we show an isolator right there, and then this pipe here. But I cleaned it up, but it's got that chip. There should be a very big air leak. So I'm going to take some steel stick, JB Weld steel stick, because I think it holds up to gas. I'm going to build that up and then sand it until it's flush. We've got a gasket there. Okay, there's my patch. And then I just threw a piece of sandpaper down on a tabletop, sanded it, and that's what we got. Okay, now I went ahead and put that spacer on and that tube, intake tube, and I went over and took it off of the carburetor, cleaned it up with wire brush, and stuck it on here. I figured it'd be easier to slide that on the carb on there when I actually get the engine in versus fighting with those bolts lining those up, because I don't know how tight it is. I went through and loosened up the stator inside and moved it a little bit to try to follow the directions in the book to do the timing, and was able to get 18 thousandths or 16 thousandths, I think. Yeah, on the spark plug or the points. So now I guess my next thing is to stick it in the bike